Hey everybody, and welcome back to Kerbal Space Program RP-0. We are once again joining our crew out at Rosalina Memorial Station on the moon, as we need to do some logistics and shifting of things. Namely, we need to get the Perseus 1, which is in orbit. It was the craft the crew took to get here with their lander. You can see off in the right-hand side of the screen, is orbiting the moon opposite Tremonia Station, and we would like to dock the two together for resource transfer and other things. Basically, the lander that we have here, we're going to leave at Tremonia Station in orbit of the moon so that it can be reusable many, many times, hopefully. But in order to get the crew home safe, we need to basically dock it to Tremonia and collect the Perseus and put it at least in the same orbit, preferably docked to Tremonia Station. So the first step really is going to be to take what fuel we got from our last resupply and refuel our lander with it. It probably has enough for an ascent stage, but we want to bring as much as possible considering all of the orbital changes that we have to make to the Perseus in order to get it to Tremonia. So we tried to pick up this fuel tank. We did empty it into the main fuel tanks within Rosalina Memorial Station, but it's just a little too heavy to articulate properly. So we're just going to kind of dig a corner in and brute force it across the terrain. Just move it to the other side of the base. We can use this as a midpoint to connect the lander, which we should probably give a name to. So yes. If you have a suggestion as to what to call this reusable lander that will stay in moon orbit and work as a crew hauling taxi to and from the surface, I would love to hear your suggestions. Please leave them in the comments below. So our engineer, Laura Douglas, will be moving some of these connector pipes. I don't know what happened to the concrete pylon that was underneath this fuel tank. It seems to have just magically disappeared. But with the fuel pipes hooked up, we can now transfer fuel from the base itself and into the lander. We'll just try to open up the two tanks that we have available there and empty those two, and then empty this other tank that we filled. And that's basically every last little drop of fuel on station, which means we're probably going to need a dedicated fuel resupply run at some point here in the very near future. With that done, Laura can go recollect our disposal unit rover. We're just going to go park it on the other side of the base, get it clear of, I guess, launch gases or something. Anyway, she will also eventually rearticulate that arm back into its proper stowed position. There we go. And just park it ever so gently with the headlights shining on the base, so in case we do have to make another nighttime landing, which is inevitable considering how often we have to resupply this place, she'll set the parking brake, of course, and then jump back in. We will get our resident ace pilot, Valentina Kerman, out. She will be piloting this mission, of course, and thankfully she brought enough of a tool along. Now, I did forget to recharge the batteries. That was just dumb on my part. And, well, since we're in the daylight, it is charging itself just ever so slowly. I would really like to have enough electric charge on board to just not really have to worry about it. So we'll just drain the batteries from our Rosalina Memorial Station and into the lander before we get Valentina up into the pilot seat to start getting things warmed up here. Yep, have to jump for the ladder. Can't just grab it from the ground. We should probably talk to the engineers about that, but I don't think we're sending another one of these out. At least that's the plan, is to not have to. We will be bringing our engineer along, just in case. I think there's some crates and things we have to move around. I don't know if you can attach those to things without a tool, or if anyone besides an engineer can really use the tool. She will also have to jump for her ladder, of course. And now we'll just select our target. Still listed as the Artemis 5 Super. I should probably try to remember to go back and change it to Perseus, but there we are, kind of underneath the orbital path. Almost. We're just going to give it another lap. Yeah, it looks like if we correct south and then south by 90, we should be able to make a solid rendezvous. But the batteries are dead. Of course they are. The sun went down, and with no RTGs on board at all, we will have to reconnect the lander to the base and recharge yet again. Figures, doesn't it? We'll just go ahead and take that entire battery, and while we're thinking about it and letting this battery charge, we'll get rid of some of our waste product. We can probably dump a little bit more battery into the lander itself, but we will make sure also to get rid of any of the excess waste products we have. We just went ahead and vented everything that was on station, because why not? You know, littering. It's kind of what we do best out here. Anyway, here's old me to get us off the moon. Alright, 3, 2, 1. There we go. Oh, thank goodness. Still a positive TWR. I didn't even think to check for that. Alright, so we're going to have to pretty much ignore our relative inclination to our target for a little while. We just we need to tilt this thing south. Gain a whole bunch of altitude. What kind of orbit do we have here? Altitude 369 kilometers. I don't know. This thing has lots of delta V. That shouldn't be a problem, I'm assuming. But and 51 degrees. Let's start bringing this over and see if we can't just try to match that relative inclination. Yeah, it looks like we do still need to continue heading south, and then we'll probably get a little closer to the 90. Pull the gear in. No real reason. It just looks better that way. Alright, we can probably start to level into this a little bit. I'll feel so much better when we get around into the daylight side. Yeah. Alright, now it's time to start making our turn in so we can start to bleed off some of this relative inclination. Bring this down around a little closer to the 90. I think that's about the vector we need to go through. Of course, we'll overshoot it a bit so that we can really correct on that inclination. 3 kilometers per second left in the tank, so fuel is really not my concern right now. It's just an effective, nice, clean docking. That's always the goal. We have a whole lot of work to do, and I hope that Perseus is up to the task. Again, it's a 6-crew system. It's built for Mars, so using the moon as its testing ground, it should be able to do much, much more than what something like Apollo, or even, God, remember Artemis 1? That was a joke. Artemis 2, Artemis 3, that were built for the moon don't have near the capability of this vehicle, and I'm really hoping to kind of push it for everything it's worth and see how much effective use we can get out of it. So let's just start a big lean in here and go ahead and get this little guy on up to orbit, and I'll pick all of you up there. We'll just speed this up a bit in post. We'll try to nail down as much of that relative inclination as we possibly can. I think we were able to get it to like 0.3 something. Of course, I'll never be able to actually hold it there, but we can certainly try. And now we'll just aim right down the horizon. Our apoapsis is about 100 kilometers. We need to be at about 300 or so before, I don't know, in order to circularize. But only so many things I can pay attention to at any given moment. But there it is, starting to really gain some altitude. And we'll just let it roll out and shut our engines down right about the correct altitude. And then we'll plot out for a circularization burn. Yeah, it should be fine. No really direct rendezvous, because, you know, of course not. And what I did forget to do was level out some of the life support. I think I got rid of way more than I should have, and it's certainly going to make me a little bit nervous. Here's our circularization burn. Happens pretty quick. And now we just need to wait to make a solid approach to our target in order to rendezvous for docking. Just take a quick monitor of the electric charge. It is recharging when we are in the sun. It's not quite quick enough. But we'll jump over to the Perseus one, rename it just so that we can stop being confused about things, and then do our time warpy thing without giving ourselves epilepsy while we wait for the lander to catch up with us. With no crew on board, there's no actual way to control Perseus. It does have a core, but it's way over tonnage, etc., etc. So it looks like it's going to be quite a good long while. I did not plan this very effectively, nor did I make the orbits work very well, and there's our life support problems in full view. They have about 5 days of oxygen, which it's really nice that the thing that not having will kill them the quickest is the thing that they have the absolute least amount of. So we need to make this rendezvous within 5 days, and in trying to conserve fuel, I really thought that maybe we could just wait it out and let their orbital paths slowly catch up to one another. You can see that magenta indicator near the top right of the moon or so, slowly working its way around. A lot easier to see now that I actually focused the camera. We needed to meet up with the other indicator that's about at the 7 o'clock position on the moon. And we've already burned through 2 days of life support, so we are actually just leaving them in orbit for about a week. I do kind of feel bad about this, but I don't know. We're coming up on being able to actually make this rendezvous. We'll maybe take another pass. 19 hours of life support left, so we really don't have much of a choice. We probably just need to go ahead and make this work. So let's set up the node. Actually, let's switch vehicles, and then we'll go set up the node. Alright, back out here at our lander. 18 hours of life support remain, so we need to make this rendezvous before that 18-hour time limit kills the crew. There are lots of life support supplies on board Perseus, so if we can make the docking within the allotted time frame, we'll be in pretty good shape. And it looks like our rendezvous is actually not going to be that hard to hit unless you really screw up writing the node. But I'll just get the indicator in roughly the correct spot and then do this by hand, keeping a close eye on that separation at closest approach, coming down around 15 kilometers now, not yet, now-ish, but we'll go ahead and work that down by using our RCS thrusters to fine-tune the approach, and it looks like that intercept is going to be in about an hour, which is just perfect, because that gives us lots and lots and lots of time to actually perform the docking. Hopefully it'll take less than a real-world hour, but knowing me, it might not, and that still gives us like 15 hours of literal breathing room within our life support supplies. So MechJeb will plot the node for a match velocities at closest approach. We've got about 61.5 meters per second of correction to do, which won't take too much work for these 4 Astros engines. We just need to get around the node, time warp up to that. Almost pure retrograde. That's pretty cool. Yeah, it says it's 6-second burn. There's Perseus. Nice to see you. We'll try to just nail it as quick as we can. 500 meters off the bow. That's not bad at all. Let's get ourselves spun in here. This thing maneuvers so nicely when it's almost empty. It really is a shame to have to fill it with fuel and lose all of this ridiculous performance. Now, I know time is our one big limiting factor, but time warping when so close to another vehicle does really dumb things. So I just basically had to sit it out and do this the patient way. Man, if this game doesn't teach you some patience, nothing ever will. So let's just try to get ourselves lined up right ahead of the vehicle, and we can just kill our velocity directly there, then make a 90-degree turn, and hopefully go straight for docking. Just a few hours left on our life support. Let's go ahead and neutralize this, get ourselves rotated. Not quite aligned. We need to move it to the side a little bit. We also need to figure out what button does what axis, and then go ahead and push ourselves in closer to hopefully make this the quickest, easiest, best rendezvous ever done without docking port alignment indicator ever attempted. Nice view of our target coming in there at the north of the screen, but I will switch you over to Old Me for real-time docking coverage. Right, approach looks good. Let's go ahead and shut these down. Why not? 10 more meters to go. Not a big deal. Alright. Just a couple of quick taps. Get that true indicator lined right up there. This approach looks so solid, it's awesome. Oh, come on, come on. Bump. Almost. Hey, wow. Docked. Well, that was easy. Alright. Val, if you don't mind, please. We need you to go ahead and assume the controls. We've got some things to transfer around, namely food, water, and oxygen, probably some fuel. And we can get the rest of this mission underway. Please don't get stuck next to the hatch. Grab. Excellent. And board. Perfect. And with Val at the controls here, the very first step is to, one, set our target, and then two, make a node to raise our apoapsis up very high, because we have like 165 degrees of relative inclination to correct for, and the best way to do that is at the greatest possible altitude. Because when you are moving the slowest, it is the easiest or the most efficient to make those radial changes. Something like that. Anyway, so we'll set the node at our ascending or descending node to make sure that our whichever is opposite ascending descending node is on the apoapsis almost near exactly. That will be the absolutely most efficient way to make this transfer. We will put a little fuel back into the lander so that we can take advantage of its thrusters. Legit, and then light our engines for about a 500 meter per second burn out to a much higher altitude. Once out there, we will make our inclination change to basically line ourselves up with Tremonia Station, and then circle back down to our periapsis and brake, and then hopefully go for docking, although I don't think we're going to get around to most of that this episode, seeing as how I've kept you here far too long already. And Perseus makes nice quick work of this burn, coming out and rounding it out now. We'll just accidentally overshoot by quite a long ways, because I was distracted probably by a dog that needed something absolutely urgently. So a quick about face, and then 100 or so meters per second that I entirely overcorrected and shot ourselves out of lunar orbit. Good job. Totally gonna wish I had that fuel later. I can just see it now. But we'll bring ourselves back into orbit, shut our engines down, and then set this node to correct our relative inclination and get ourselves at somewhat uh, somewhat lined up. Whoops. Yeah, nodes do really funny things when you flip them all the way around and make corrections of such. But all the way out there, it's like 215 meters per second. I did plot it out in low orbit, and it was basically something like 3,700. So make no mistake, we are saving a whole lot by flying way up there and doing it at high altitude. But Laura Douglas is going to hop out. We have these 2 canisters that we have filled with things from our cleanup of Rosalina Station, and she is going to install them back onto the Perseus so that maybe we can get a little bit of a refund. After some orbital gymnastics, she will be able to attach the crate magically. I don't know how she was able to wedge it in there past the fairing, but, you know, she's real good at her job, and it's not my place to ask these kinds of questions. I'll just, I'll leave all the orbital shenanigans up to the trained professionals. So, it's a, many days, I guess, all the way out to our node. Again, 215 meter per second correction won't take much for us. We're at like a 1.20 thrust to weight ratio, 900 meters per second, well, 980 some odd meters per second left in these tanks. So I think we can do this, but it's going to be real tight. I guess that's what keeps it interesting. But then again, this thing did have to refuel that lander from scratch after we got it to the moon. So if you're wondering about our capabilities, they're pretty high. Alright. 5 meters, 3, 2, 1, shut down. No, let's... Yeah, the relative inclination started to go back up, so I think about 0.5 is pretty good enough. We'll try to touch this up on RCS just a little. Yeah, that's not bad. If it would only let me focus view on the moon. There we go. Excellent. This will make zooming a whole lot easier. Yeah, now it's going back up. So, okay then. I guess around 0.4, 0.5 is the best we can do. Let's add our maneuver to recircularize. Yeah, let's just, we'll go ahead and bring this on down. Make the orbits touch, and then we'll know about how long we'll have to wait. Yeah, it looks like it's going to be entirely on the opposite side. So slowing down versus speeding up. I guess we'll just take the slower path and let Tremonia catch up to us before we go for docking. Anyway, that'll all be in next episode. 615 meters. Oh boy. Anyway, that's going to do it for this episode, everybody. Thank you so much for hanging out. I really do appreciate it. And I will see all of you in the next one. So until then, see you later.